Young, well-educated, but out of work and prepared to move abroad for what sounds like a great opportunity. But that's where the scam begins. This next footage is disturbing. Human traffickers in parts of Southeast Asia have been trawling social media, promising high-salary jobs and easy loans, only to hand over the international applicants to telecom and online fraud rings operating in fenced-off compounds, supposedly torturing the detainees into working for them as cyber scammers to prey on other people. A highly lucrative operation. And the workers risk death if they try escaping their closely guarded desks. A global anti-scamming NGO says abusers sent these videos to captives as a warning. According to local media, the victims of these gangs include Taiwanese, Hong Kongers, Chinese citizens, Thais and Vietnamese nationals. Most of them end up in Sihanoukville, a lawless port city in Cambodia, or Mirawi in Myanmar. Some are reportedly forced to work in Laos and Thailand, their passports confiscated. Online boiler room rackets have long had a presence in the region, but as more details emerge, local law enforcement agencies are waking up to this cross-border phenomenon. It'll take international cooperation to save these people. The UN Human Rights Envoy recently visited Cambodia, where hundreds of Taiwanese are said to be trapped.
There have been reports of tragic situations of victims fleeing by jumping from their walled buildings to try to escape. Rescue is difficult and depends much upon whether the victims are able to relay the message somehow to ask for outside help.
DW reporter Hang Xuan Li has been following the story for us. Who's behind these criminal groups?
Well, there are indications that these groups might be linked to Chinese gangs. I'll go into the details later, but what really shocked me during my research was the scale of these operations, how big they have become. Different NGOs have estimated the number of people trapped in the scam industry at up to tens of thousands. And this is because they have a whole system supporting it. And this is how they usually do it. So human traffickers often post job ads on social media targeting young people. And the jobs vary a lot, so sometimes ranging from accounting to customer service to tech. But there is one thing in common. So they always claim easy work for high pay, and also flights and accommodations are almost always included. So to our viewers, watch out if this happens, because this is not a good sign.
Okay.
And if once these people arrive at the airport, their passports will get confiscated, and they will be driven to building complexes where they were forced to work in so-called boiler rooms for up to 15 hours a day. And there they had to run illegal online or phone scams that involves gambling, for example, or investments in cryptocurrency or romance, meaning they build up a relationship and ask for money afterwards. Now, I have spoken to a victim-turned-rescuer. Lu Xiangri is his name, and this was his experience.
I told them I wasn't meant to be there, that they'd got the wrong guy. The gang said they'd bought me for $12,000 and showed me the transaction record. I was sold by an agent. Nowadays, they get at least $20,000 for each captive.
From what I mentioned before, escaping doesn't sound like an option.
No, not really, because these people are trapped in areas heavily guarded by security forces. And now Lu Xiangri sent me these clips that he said was sent by the victims, the captives. And he himself told me that the area was an enclosed district with shops, with restaurants, with supermarkets. So just like a normal neighborhood, but with the exception that it is actually fenced off and there is no way for them to leave.
It sounds very professional.
And if they try to escape, this is what will happen. That's what Lu Xiangri told me.
Some of those who try to escape are beaten to death. That happens very often. So why would you dare try to escape? If you resist, they'll sell you to the next scammer organisation, or they'll beat you up.
Now, I can't verify the claims about deaths, but I have received a few images from an anti-scam NGO, which is called GASO, where Lu Xiangren is volunteering at right now. And they told me that those images were sent by victims after they were beaten by abusers using wood dogs or electro-shock devices.
Why aren't local governments stepping in to rescue these people? If they're aware of this now, and you're saying this is huge, it sounds like a lot of people are trapped and waiting for help.
Yeah, local governments did rescue people from time to time, but they never did it wholeheartedly. And in fact, I have spoken to another NGO, a New York-based NGO called China Labor Watch, and I've asked the same question because they have been watching the situation, the human trafficking situation in places like Cambodia for years already. And this is what founder Li Qiang told me.
The operation of these scam groups are linked to lots of infrastructure and job opportunities. All of these can help boost the local economy.
So Li Qiang told me it was never in the interest of local governments or the police to completely eradicate these groups because, after all, this is a big business. GASO, the other NGO I just mentioned, estimates that these operations steal up to tens of billions of dollars per year worldwide. And so imagine what that would mean for local economies.
Yeah, it sounds like they have quite a lot of money at their disposal. You mentioned China Labor Watch. What does this have to do with China?
It has a lot to do with China. So both Li Qiang and Lu Xiangren mentioned to me that the majority of the victims are actually Chinese, but it just never really made it into the media or into the news. This has to do, let's take Cambodia as an example again. And there, the gangs targeted Chinese people at first. And that has something to do with Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative that helped build up a whole special economic zone right next to the city of Sihanoukville.
Lots of Chinese workers came to work in real estate development or the gambling industry. Chinese investments became the pillar of Sihanoukville's economy.
Now, with these investments, the beachside town actually turned into a Chinese-run casino metropolis. Wow. Yes, and that reportedly gave rise to crimes and gang activities. And at the same time, it also attracted lots of Chinese tourists, or it used to attract lots of Chinese tourists to come over to Cambodia to gamble. Now, gambling is illegal in both China and Cambodia. So at some point, both governments cooperated to crack down on this industry. Now, the gangs have to look for something else, so they turned to human trafficking. And at first, they lured Chinese people to scam Chinese people. And then the pandemic came, so the Chinese couldn't leave their country because of Beijing's strict COVID policy. The gangs then started to turn to other places, and they turned to Taiwan, to Hong Kong, or Vietnam, and that's when the crime started to gain attention.
So these gangs have so much money at their disposal. They're powerful, obviously, and they sound very inventive. How hard is it to crack down on them?
I think it will be really hard to crack down on them. The NGO GASO said that these groups have unfortunately already gone global. They have been in touch with people from Latin America or from Africa who were forced to scam people in Europe or in North America. So, of course, I can't really verify these claims, but I do believe that unless governments around the world cooperate to clamp down on these operations, they will always find ways to survive.
How much of a shock was it to you as a journalist when you stumbled across this story?
It was very, very shocking to me. I never thought that... I started to research when I came to realize that, hundreds of Taiwanese people were lured to Cambodia. But then just when I started to do some more research, I realized that this is actually something global, and it really shocked me.